So, Mr Speaker, it has come to this tonight, that this new Prime Minister and his ministers, not just their competence, but also their good faith, has been so destroyed across this House that this radical but necessary step to preserve parliamentary democracy and our futures has been taken. And anyone who has heard either the honourable gentleman, the Leader of the House, or indeed the way in which the Brexit minister rattled away at a merry pace will recall those old words: the louder they protested their honour, the faster we counted the spoons. Because the truth of the matter is that this no deal would drive us into the arms of Donald Trump on the NHS. This no deal would be no good for the people in my constituency who are now having unemployment twice the national average. And this no deal would be no good for the people who need the desperate medical issues that the honourable lady from the SNP talked about earlier. And the list of warnings about no-deal Brexit grow longer. Crises about supplies and prices of fresh food, essential medicines, chaos on the road, ports after Halloween. All warnings not from Marxists or from Trotskyists or left-wingers, but from such radical organisations as the British Retail Consortium and the British Road Hauliers. But you know, this isn't just about Brexit anymore, or even whether people voted for Leave or Remain. It's about our future as a progressive democracy in the United Kingdom. And I think that we really have to take that into account. But we also have to take into account the situation of individual constituents. My constituents, the man who wrote to me and said, "My father is rather ill these days and relies on a variety of medication. I'm concerned what the impact of a no deal would have on the supply of this medication." Yes. And we've heard from those who have no axe to grind that that is absolutely the case. I've had a letter, as many of us will have had, from ordinary constituents. An ordinary constituent says, "Please, can you help over this issue with no-deal Brexit? Our NHS is so important to us as food on our plates. It's hard to survive as it is. I cut back on food and power and have no holidays. Please sort this out." That's an ordinary constituent, not engaged with the finer constitutional points that the Leader of the House manages to trim on the sixpence, but with the everyday bread and butter of daily living in a town, like many others in the north of England, where people feel left behind and vulnerable, and where, to satisfy the interests of a small group of cronies round the Prime Minister, this government is trying to stamp down on everything that's said. There is no evidence, not even a sniff, of them having presented any proposals to the EU. The Prime Minister fancies himself as a classicist. Well, what he's been doing is in the tradition of the prescriptions of ancient Rome and the way in which he has treated his own backbenchers. The Prime Minister also fashions himself as an admirer of Churchill. Well, he should remember that Churchill told us all that the first duty of a member is to do what he thinks is his faithful and disinterested judgment to the honour and the safety of this Britain. And that's what patriotism is about. That's what real patriotism is about. And the way in which this Prime Minister has disgracefully used the prorogation process blunts the interests of this House, blunts the interests of the British people. They're not the attributes of a British Prime Minister. I would say they were the attributes of a tin-pot despot or autocrat, except that this Prime Minister might think it flattered him. No, what he is a petulant man-child, unable to get his way with this House, and that is why he is trying to shut down. That is why he's trying to shut down debate with this prorogation, and that is why we should support this motion tonight.
Sandbach.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This Parliament is at the very heart of our national story and our shared history. It's what the Prime Minister's great idol, Winston Churchill, called the cockpit of the nation.